Good morning. It's the A to Z podcast. I'm Zach Jackson. He's Andre Knott. Akron Jackson and Dre Knott on all your favorite social media platforms. A to Z podcast.com, Facebook.com/A to Z podcast. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. How you doing? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, all that other stuff. It truly is the morning for once. And I'm not a morning person, but I got my cup of coffee going, and let's do
You
this.
went to Get Go this morning? How awesome.
Actually, I shouldn't tell the truth. No, I did it at home today.
I shouldn't tell the truth. That's going on your gravestone
Don't
here.
lie. You ain't lying.
Our sponsors are Scene, the Honeymoon Grill, where I had just an outstanding breakfast yesterday. It never disappoints. And American Fireworks, they're open year round. They'll do gift certificates. They'll get you anything you want to blow anything up. And they've been really good to us and really good to people who have told them that A to Z sent them. So Christmas presents, all that stuff, Hanukkah presents. AmericanFireworks.com. They're always open. They're super friendly. And then a shout out to a place that's not an endorser of ours, but a place that's been near and dear to our hearts and our bellies, and that's Swenson's Drive-In in Akron. You've heard us rave about that. I honestly remember the first time my mom ever took me to Swenson's as a life moment.
Oh, yeah.
And the other day for National Comfort Food Day or something, and I could do a whole podcast on the stupidity of how everything in the world has its own day now, but this is the world we live in. The fine folks at Swenson's invited us for a free lunch. Dre and his heathen son took advantage of it. It unfortunately did not mesh well with my work schedule. Then they went out of their way to invite me to a dinner at a different location, and that did not mesh with my social schedule.
They tried to get you to go to Avon?
Yeah, but we love to eat, and we appreciate any time anybody is willing to feed us, right?
No doubt. And it was almost embarrassing to show up at Swenson's and to be catered there. Like, it was like somebody said to me, it's like they almost know how fat and how much your schedule is. You hadn't eaten it in long, so they gave it to me for free. Like, I didn't know how to act. Like, I went to tip to the guy, and the guy's like, no, this is on us. And I was like, nah, man, I don't need you tweeting that I'm cheap. Take this $5. It was a real cool moment.
You're like, I'm tired of the stories about assholes from St. V not tipping. I am giving you this $5.
Right. So you gonna take this $5, but it's usually kids from St. V that are working in the Akron area. It's just cool though, because like you said, I can remember the first time. And the funny thing is, I went to the one on the north side, and that was very close to where my dad used to own a car wash. And where I grew up, I had to work at that car wash, and that would be like the cool thing I got to do as the 14, 15-year-old. I would be able to go down there. I was the one, because I was the youngest. They would put me on a bike to go get everybody's food from the Swenson's that I actually went to with my son. So. Cool moment. Shout out to Swenson's. We appreciate it. Comfort food has never been any better. I know that we have fights now, and I love the jackasses on Twitter and everything else. You say something about Swenson's, and somebody has to say Five Guys or this. Look, free country. Everybody can love whatever they love. For two fat kids from Akron, we'll always love Swenson's. That's just how it works. And you know what? To be honest, I know it's the holiday season. I wish some of you filthy bastards never got Swenson's that you're getting. Good for them that they're everywhere. But some of you guys don't deserve it when you ask.
Amen to that. But before we go down that rabbit hole, speaking of Akron, I want to deliver an apology to our listeners here, and that is that we didn't get to this the other day. Akron has fired Terry Bowden as its head coach.
Yeah.
And my apology, not that it still could happen. I don't know what he's going to do. I had heard he had married a woman who's from here or lived here. I don't know that, so maybe he's still going to be around. But Terry is an incredible wealth of knowledge and an incredible storyteller. And we tried to have him on the podcast exactly a year ago. And facts are it didn't happen because after we set up the time, the University of Akron told us they could not provide us a table for our equipment. This is not a story.
Yeah.
I'm not making this shit up. Okay. So we didn't interview Terry Bowden. We had kind of half pursued it at another time, and then I wanted to do it, and we just blew it. So anyway, look, it's a tough business. It's an interesting time.
We wanted to do it right.
Yeah, we want. Listen, I mean, you think we've just let Terry Pluto go? Like, Terry Bowden is twice the talker that Terry Pluto is, right? So
right. And
all we needed to do, literally all we needed to do was put the soundboard and the laptop on that table and let him go. I could have just said, hey, thanks for listening. Hey, Terry. And he would have told stories about growing up with his dad and coaching in West Virginia and coaching in the old Rubber Bowl and doing all this stuff. And it didn't happen. The coaching carousel, Dre, in today's sports culture and football culture especially, has become its own season. And I get it. Guys are angling for jobs that make life-changing money, right? And guys are angling for these MAC jobs that if they succeed, they can launch to where they make generation-changing money. They can get to the top of their field. Thank God the Browns won those couple of games because we can only talk. And by we, I mean me and you. I mean all the guys on the radio, everywhere, everybody's podcast. You can only talk about a coaching search in which John Dorsey's not sharing any real information for so long before you lose your damn mind, right? But along with saying this, there is a human element to this. You hate when anybody loses their job, and anytime a coach, even when he's failed, even when he's been as bad as Hugh Jackson, gets fired, there are a lot of layers to a lot of families that have to move or aren't sure that they're going to have to move or what's going to go on. So it's not a fun time having lived it, covering it, living it, being in the building, having lots of friends in the coaching business from my professional time. It sucks. And I wanted to read this the other day, which is why I brought it up today, from Frank Solich, who's been at OU, who's a Cleveland guy who's done this, and who went 9-4 at Nebraska, and it wasn't good enough.
And they walked him out. Now look what their problems are.
Yeah, so the other day he was at his bowl press conference, and the subject of Terry getting fired was brought up, and here's what Frank said. He said, when a guy gets let go, it's difficult, especially if you know the guy is a really good coach. Sometimes expectations are what they are and not necessarily realistic, but Terry has done a great job at Akron. They played in the conference championship last year. It's a business that's tough, and some people make it tougher. And, yes, he's taking shots at Akron, and he should be. I mean, look, I don't know what went on. I know the rumor mill's been saying since the summer that he's out there, and maybe to just run his course, but they won the damn MAC East last year, right? The expectations should never be lower. Yes, they have nice facilities, but they have no winning tradition. They've never been able to get the right local guys, and they've never had any stability. I mean, not only does OU sell this outstanding university and campus, but Solich has been there for a long time. In the MAC, this is the nature of it. You win and you take off, right? So, again, I hate talking about a coaching search. I know – I can tell you why Lincoln Riley, why John Harbaugh, why these guys would be candidates. I don't know these guys. I don't know what John Dorsey's thinking. I don't know who they would hire as their coordinators, right? Or what their first order of business would be. So, like I said, it's a weird time. I understand, some of the angling. And look, I've been doing this writing thing long enough that I have contacts in the coaching business. And whether we're real friends or fake friends, I can tell you I often hear from them right about late November, early December. Hey, hope you're well. Hope the family's well. Hope the podcast is going well. By the way, who's getting this lead offensive coordinator job? By the way, if so-and-so gets Akron, you think you could drop my name? That's how it goes because this is the business that these guys have chosen. And, in a way, Dre, and unfortunately, we got 6 or 8 more weeks of the Brown search to talk about this. In a way, there is no perfect guy. In a way, the guy's always going to have flaws. And then do you judge it? Okay, whoever the next coach, does he have to be the one to win the Super Bowl? Or is there a way that the Browns just end this losing and go to the playoffs a couple times over 5 years, and that's considered a success?
Well, that should be considered a success, but I think a lot of people don't understand what success means. We always talk about success as relative to who you are and where you've been. And the step going from bad to mediocre, pretty easy. But the next couple steps that the Browns are going to have to take, that they're going to try to take, are going to be the most difficult that they're going to go through ever. Because now, as you said, the expectations change so dramatically in who, what, and where you go with these coaches. And that's, you just put the precursor of precursors. Look at Frank Solich standing up for Terry Bowden. As you said, Akron has no history, has no oomph. Look, two of the closest guys in my life, and I just got to go to Akron then quickly. I don't have really a tug one way or the other with Akron. The Rubber Bowl was somewhere I grew up. I was always around the Akron basketball team because of friends. but always pulled for the Zips for the most part because it was the local college team that you can go watch. I'm flabbergasted and blown away. I don't know everything that's going on at the University of Akron, but I know they're paying a lot of money to presidents that are no longer there, for building houses for presidents that are no longer there. And to have a coach that still had 2 years remaining on his contract and wanted to be there and won the MAC last year, his conference, and went to a bowl game, something that never happens. I hope they're doing the right thing for the right reasons, is all I can say from afar. Look, it wasn't great, but I know that from the local coaches and different people that I know, there were a lot of people that were extremely excited that there was a coach at Akron U that was actually recruiting local kids. You can look at a roster of the Zips currently, and you see kids from St. V, you see kids from Bowden, Barberton. You saw kids that actually grew up in the area, and to me, that's the only way you're going to have any success at the University of Akron. So I hope whatever they're doing next, they know what they're doing and what they're getting themselves into, because if they don't, I just see this as just a black eye for the university and for that football team that's really never had a chance anyway. And they've got these great facilities now. So I hope for the best. I really do. I just want the best. I don't know if there's enough people that care about this, and we're only probably talking about 15 people that care about Akron football, but I know my father-in-law still goes to games year-round. He travels and watches them. It's his alma mater. He loves them, and I know my buddy Rob still listens to Steve French more than he listens to his wife. So tells you all you need to know about some of my friends. But what are these schools without that? But seriously, what are these schools without that? I mean, you listen to it. You tweet that he's your uncle. I personally can't listen to Akron football games or basketball games, but I know 3 people that do. And it's important to them. I do. I know 3 that do it.
Well, this is a moment where no one listening can explain how funny that last sequence really was to us. And that's fine. This is our damn podcast. If you don't like it, go away.
Your problem. But
Dre, it comes down to realistic expectation. And this isn't just this is a sports conversation and a life conversation, right? Realistic expectations of what your program is, okay? In the NFL, there's 32. You win the Super Bowl or you don't, right? Obviously, when you've been bad, you take the strides. Obviously, you try to excel locally and matter and do things in the community and grow your brand, right? And that's changed as this happened here. But the goal is to win the Super Bowl, and one team does and everyone else doesn't, right? All 32 feed the marketing machine, but one team raises the trophy, and realistically 11 or 12 think they could have in any given year. Well, in college football with 130 teams and 3 that can realistically win the national championship, it's different, okay?
Yeah.
And when you are a mid-major, which is a broad label because Akron and frankly almost every MAC program is actually more like a low major, you have to say, okay, the chances we could actually become Boise State are slim and fucking none, right? And even if we could, that's years and years and years down the road. So what can we do? Well, we need to matter locally. We need to win games. We need to matter locally. And the unfortunate reality is that Akron had to play an extra bye game this year in which you go to someone else's stadium and get paid to get thumped. And they actually won at Northwestern. But they had to do that to be able to afford to fire Terry Bowden, right? This is the reality of your program, right? Ohio State is turning over coaches and pumping in the money and building the next big thing for the next wave of 5-star recruits. And Akron is playing an extra bye game to be able to fire its coach, right? So
fire coach that actually won for them.
Yeah, and everybody says, well, it's so unfair to the kids in the MAC that they have to play these Thursday nights and no one goes. Well, it is unfair when they make Toledo play 3 games in 12 days. That's just stupid, and that falls on the MAC commissioner for not doing a better job. However, the reality is, guys, without the MAC TV contracts that pay each program more than $1 million, at least 3 programs would not have their programs.
Yeah.
And why they are able and why they've made the decision, the smart business decision, and this is what this is, a business, to play on Tuesdays and play on Thursdays is because nobody's going to the games on Saturday anyway. It is freezing in MAC country after October 20th. It just is. So with the exception of BG Toledo and with the rare exception of a competitive Akron-Kent game that's played in decent weather, and when Ohio State is not playing, and when Massillon and McKinley aren't playing, no one is going to the games anyway. Ohio has a select group of season ticket holders, okay? Buffalo has a select dozen season ticket holders and boosters. Akron has a few companies. Otherwise, they have to do what they have to do, and going to TV has not only helped them get a different level of player, and why you see Buffalo win 10 games, why you see Toledo have 3-4 kids get drafted every year, but it is kept programs like Eastern and Michigan and Kent alive. And so some of you don't care about this, and that's fine, but this is lessons with Uncle Zach, and that when you're Akron, I'm the same way as you, Dre. I want them to be good. I want them to matter. I want someone to say, hey, how about the Zips? Like, that's been really impressive what they've done. Right. But there's reasons that their small flashes of success over years and years of history have never been sustained. And so whoever it's going to be, and I think it's going to be someone with Northeast Ohio ties, I'll be rooting like crazy for him. But realistically, like, you have a ceiling, and I think you almost have to embrace, like, let's hire a new coach who has aspirations of taking off, because at least he raises the level of our program before he goes to the next job.
Yeah, last thing I'll say about it, I mean, basically what we're saying is we wish better would have happened for Terry Bowden. But I'll say this to finish this off. As much as having TV and those Tuesday, Wednesday night games, and we can complain about them, and yes, the money obviously helps the programs grow and keep programs in that you just said, but wouldn't be in the MAC. I think the other cool thing is that you get local kids that get to be on. Let's be honest. Let's cut it down to the bare minimum of what the dream is. Anytime you can put a kid on television to play a sport that they grew up loving and hoping they could be on TV, that's huge. And I think that helps. Guys get guys to the pros. I mean, we can talk about if you do it, if you make plays, they'll find you. But it sure as hell helps to be on ESPN, to be on in 50 states and have, in 48 states and Canada, everywhere else. I mean, Andy Reid said it best about Kareem Hunt. And I hate bringing his name up, but it's a part of the conversation. He said it was nothing, better than on Thursday night when he's doing his coaching, and getting ready for his game plan for Sunday to turn on the TV and see some kid on Toledo each week scooting all over the place. So that exposure has helped tremendously to the kids that do fall through the cracks that maybe aren't 4-star, 5-star recruits. And I think that's part of the story and part of the dream and part of the appreciation that we have for all levels of college football, whether it be D3, whether it be, I still call it Division II or 1AA. And Akron and Kent are on the fringe of that, right? Like, I mean, when I went to school in the mid-'90s, it was Youngstown State was 1AA, but because Tressel won there, it was truly a conversation of,
right,
do you go to Mount Union, do you go to Youngstown State, or do you go to Kent? And it was like, just because Kent was Division I, that didn't win out all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if people understand that. Like, it didn't win out all the time in my household because you knew if you went to Youngstown State or you went to Mount Union, you would win. So that was a real conversation that was had in my household, and I don't know if that conversation is still had. I hope it is.
Well, there is a thought process that the lower level MAC schools should look to going in back into 1AA, because then they would have a chance to win a national championship. Well, the reality is they wouldn't have a TV deal, so then they wouldn't have a program. So it's just not. That's just not a thought. And look, here's the other reality. In a couple of years, when your son is old enough to really want to go to a football game and understand what it is, like on a Saturday, you're going to try to take him to the Horseshoe. That's obvious. But otherwise, you would choose a Massillon game on Friday night over a Kent State or an Akron game. You just would, right? Flat out. If you're taking AJ to InfoCision Stadium, like, it's going to be for the Hope and St. V game. It's sure shit ain't going to be for Akron and Central Michigan.
Right.
I mean, it's just,
but it's just how it works. But that doesn't mean that over the long haul they're not doing the right thing and can't get to the point that they need to get to. But you know what? Akron changes who it is and how they work so much that I don't think they know what they're truly doing at this point in time. Just my opinion. So good luck to them. We'll see. We keep talking about coach searches, and I brought up Mike McCarthy in the last podcast, and you didn't say very much about him. I feel like in the NFL there's like this age discrimination. Everybody's like, oh, you gotta go young. You can get in trouble doing that. I think in any selection of anything, right? You're telling me that there's older coaches that can't win in the NFL?
No, I'm not telling you that at all. I think
I
when
know
you
you're
look,
not, but I keep hearing it.
Yeah, well, I think when you look, okay, do we think Baker Mayfield's better than Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I do, and they're both young. They both have played a number of games that's under 20, right? So we don't know.
Right.
But I think, when John Dorsey looks, Dre, and says, well, I couldn't get Matt Nagy last year because of my dumb ownership that kept Hugh Jackson, one of the worst coaches of all time.
Yeah.
I think he's looking – obviously everybody's looking for the next Sean McVay. I don't think it's an age discrimination thing at all. And as I've said, I think there is a chance – Dorsey's been on the job 1 year today. So there is a chance that he's evaluated every corner of that organization and every aspect of that locker room, and he might need a Mike McCarthy, a Bruce Arians – John Harbaugh, a guy who's done it, to just say, we're here. But he also might be able to say, as this window gets ready to open over the next 10 to 30 months, I am fine with a younger coach who sees things a certain way, who wants to absolutely play a certain brand of wide open offense, and we'll grow together and go there. I don't think it's age. I've said there's definitely, to me, something to be said for having been a head coach before at some level because of all the things you got to deal with, all the things that come across your desk. It's not standing in front of the media because that should be like the last thing. I mean, Hugh was even bad at that. That told me a lot, right? If talking football, when you're paid $5 million a year to coach football, you should be able to talk football for 15 minutes a day without it being a goddamn chore, right? So I just think,
but at the same time, having an orgasm because McVay can remember 15 plays in a row doesn't mean anything either.
No, but does he coach like that? Does he coach like on Sundays, like he's into every single detail and he's been setting something up for 6 days? Yes,
absolutely, and most coaches are. But you don't have to say it to do it. Look, one of the worst speakers of all time is Bill Belichick. Does it fucking matter what he says on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday?
No, but is he a brilliant guy and that's obvious?
But that's what I go back to. I don't care what they say on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, or Friday. Bill Belichick is one of the worst ever at doing press conferences. He's not the only one. I get that, but you hit on the nail. You just hit the nail that I'm saying perfectly. Just because of how a guy talks at a press conference doesn't mean jack shit to me about how he coaches. Urban Meyer wasn't great at doing press conferences either, and he went in with the way he wanted to talk to people. He didn't want to tell you anything. But on Saturday, you knew he was prepared because of how his team played. I guess what I'm saying is we have so much media now, and we have so much coverage, and we see so much that we all think we can judge. Some of these guys aren't meant to do it. Now, with the Browns, obviously, and I've said this before, and I'll continue saying it, with the Browns, you obviously need a figurehead that can settle the masses a little bit because obviously the masses are out there, and I'm not just pointing to you, but the media in Cleveland, because things have been so bad, we are so judgmental towards everything what matters on Sunday, right? Like Freddie Kitchens, I hear people going on parades because Freddie Kitchens said the word ass and made a joke about learning how to make drinks with Bruce Arians. Well, that shit's funny when they're winning games and they're scoring points, but it doesn't matter. It's Sunday at 1:00. I mean, and I think, and most of us should know better, and you should know better. You've covered enough press conferences to know because most of them, let's be honest, most of them are a waste of time. They're doing them and most of them, like, you got a good PR guy goes, hey, here's the 3 questions you're going to answer. Everything else, just tell them what you want and let's get it over with. Like, I'm at that level. And look, I'm not blaming the Cleveland Browns. Alex Shiner, congrats on being able to get 2 radio stations to feed the beast. But by feeding the beast, I hear a lot of unintelligent talk because of what people hear because there's a 2-hour show every day. Because you get to hear the head coach talk every day, because you can go to clevelandbrowns.com and hear this. So by the time I read the story, it's like, gag me. Who fucking cares? Can you run the ball against this Carolina defense? That's what matters. So I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't really matter. Like in good towns, like Mike Tomlin, he answers how he wants to answer in Pittsburgh, right? And sometimes his press conferences are good. And sometimes they're not good at all because he doesn't really give a shit because he's got a team to prepare for a football game. I just keep seeing this and I keep cringing that the Browns are going to hire a coach and people are going to – we've talked about this. And people are going to go one way or the other because they've won or lost the press conference. I think that's a half-assed way of looking at it. That's all. And it is a halfway-ass of looking at it.
That's fine, but let me ask you this. Do you really want Mike McCarthy to be the coach of the Browns?
I don't know. I don't have a problem with talking to him. I think he'd be the best coach the Browns have had since 1999.
But you think of the available coaches here, he would be the best?
He's proven more on the NFL level than anyone else, and he's won a Super Bowl. Is he perfect? No. But I think it'd be ridiculous for me on December 7th to stand ground on one guy one way or the other. But I also think it would be stupid to cancel a guy out on December 7th as well, especially with his credentials.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I'm just thinking for 12 months, so John Dorsey took the job and Haslam said, we're keeping Hugh. So John lost that battle. He still signed that. Get that money, baby, right? So he goes through December. He makes his evaluations. They go through January. They never come out of the meeting room because they're going over all the potential free agent scenarios, all the potential trade scenarios. So take off a month of intense stress. So for 9 months, he's had a chance to know that he's going to have to hire a head coach because he's been working with Hugh every day and seeing what a clown he is. I can't see Mike McCarthy cracking the top 4 of that list. I can't. I think he's thinking, you can call it age. I think he's thinking younger. I think he's thinking innovative offense, and the Packers offense failed with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and I just can't get past that. That's all. I don't know Mike McCarthy as a man. I totally am for head coach experience, and the guy won a lot of games and is coaching a lot of big games.
But let me say this.
Okay.
You want to take – I don't know Mike McCarthy, and I don't think – and here's the beautiful thing. You cover him. I don't think anybody knows what the hell John Dorsey's thinking, which is awesome. And here's what I would say to what you just said about Green Bay. And look, I don't want any tweets because I don't even care anymore because I don't pay attention to it anyway. I'm not saying hire Mike McCarthy, but I'm saying we don't know what Mike McCarthy and John Dorsey know about what happened in Green Bay. I thought the safety yesterday was perfect. I mean, when you hear from players, and see, I listen to players more than I care about what Zach Jackson is writing or thinking, or Barry Kay thinks, or Tony Grossi. Guys that play for him think he's one of the best coaches they've ever had. Now, whatever happened in Green Bay happened, but I will say they did get rid of a lot of talent. They never go in and got free agents. I know 3 years ago, he was bitching about free agents. Something has happened. Well, here's all I'll say. There's a reason why John Dorsey is no longer in Green Bay. There's a reason why Mike McCarthy is no longer in Green Bay. They are changing the guard. Ted Thompson was there for whatever reason, and we don't have all those answers, and maybe it was time for those guys to move and change. Yes, he's got a great quarterback, but have they really put great talent around him over the last 4 years? I pay attention. Like they haven't gotten better talent around him, other than getting the number one receiver. The defense has not gotten better. They've had injuries every single year, and that was part of the bitch that McCarthy had 2 years ago, is that we don't have free agents to fill in when guys get hurt. They lose guys like Treader and don't replace them. They took a backup quarterback for a kid that can start at free safety this year. I don't know everything about Green Bay, but we still know that a coach – I've never seen, as Sam Bertigliano always says, I've never seen a jockey carry a horse over the finish line.
I love Demarius Randall. He's a really good player. He's a really good quote. He's been a nice find, as you mentioned, a bargain basement price for the Browns. But he's got a bone to pick with Green Bay because they picked him in the first round and bailed on him, right?
They traded him, right?
He's forever a Cleveland legend because he handed the ball to Hugh Jackson. But after the game last week, I asked Demarius, I said, that's a playoff team down the hallway. What is really the gap between you guys and them? And he gave a great answer, but then he said, well, we still have a great chance to make the playoffs. He doesn't live in the real world is what I'm saying. Like,
no athlete does. Well, no athlete does. But they but they know good coach. Well, all right, ask them how good a coach Hugh Jackson was.
Look, I don't know the day in and day out. I don't know the day in and day out of the Packers. But obviously, 12 is their number. They've always said that this comes from someone in the organization. As long as 12 is healthy, we should be 12-4 every year, right? We should win the Super Bowl. That is what someone told me. And this year they got rid of Jordy because they thought they were getting more explosive on offense. They brought in young legs, receiver. They brought in Jimmy Graham. They have Aaron Jones. He only missed the first 2 games. The offense just failed. I just think, to me, that is a really, really tough sell. And I don't know. I do expect, if Mike McCarthy wants to coach, I do expect the Browns to talk to him on some level. There's too much bond there. There's too much common thinking. And then,
That's all I'm saying. And the offense was stale. And I said that, but I said that the other day. If for me to hire him, that's why I won't say on December 7th, yes, I'd hire him. But for me to hire him, I would need Mike McCarthy to tell me yes, I need to step away a little bit from the West Coast offense. I need to do what Andy Reid did, and I need to open my eyes. And I told this story about Andy Reid where after getting his ass pounded in the Super Bowl and getting Donovan McNabb killed because he wouldn't go out of the shotgun, he realized, okay, I'm a West Coast guy, but I need to understand better. I need to understand what all offenses are doing to be successful. If Mike McCarthy doesn't do that, Zach, not only will he not get hired with the Cleveland Browns, he's not going to get hired in the NFL. He has to expand his offense. But in saying that, if a guy like that is willing to expand his offense, I'm going to listen to him before I'm going to listen to a lot of others. Why? Because he's had the success, he's been there, and he's won the last game of the season. That, to me, is more important than guessing. Look, Sean McVay in L.A. is awesome. It's an awesome – it's everything about it is great. It's the right guy, right time, right place, right? I will say this, and people are going to laugh at this, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. Do you remember? You remember who McVay coached for before he went to the Rams, right?
Jay Gruden.
Yes, Jay Gruden with the right players probably could have the same success as McVay. And I say that, and I'm not a big Jay Gruden fan, but I know I've watched Jay Gruden coach arena football. I've watched him work his way up. He was the quarterback and coach for like the Tampa Bay team like 15 years ago. My point is, we're talking about Scott McVay because he's innovative. They're scoring a ton of points. He's not the only one with all this innovation, right?
No.
If Jay Gruden had a young quarterback and had some talent, Jay Gruden may be doing the same thing. I say that because, well, Scott McVay learned a lot of the shit that he's running in L.A. He learned from Jay Gruden. Jay Gruden can't run half of it because he doesn't have the same type players. So a lot of times you got to have the right players to run the stuff that you want to run. Scott McVay's walked into an awesome situation, and he's taken advantage of it, and he's kicked ass with it. So you can't take anything away from him for that, and I won't. I'm just saying there's more layers to coaches than what we see because a lot of times you got to run with what you got.
We just did what I said is awful, which is argued a coaching scenario in which we don't know if there's a 2% chance or 92% chance they're even going to consider McCarthy, right? Like,
well, but my whole point is like 90% of us don't have any idea how bad or great Mike McCarthy is, and I hear people with just the most idiotic reasons for. Look, he's not, and look, I'm not riding a horse saying I want him to be my coach. There are some things about him that make you scratch your head. But his success and the way they had success in Green Bay is something that you just can't pass over and just mock. That's all I'm saying. Especially when you're the Cleveland Browns and you can't even go fucking 500.
Fair. I have a question for you about that game that you cover 169 times a year.
Yeah.
They can't really ban the shift, can they?
It's a good article by Jason Starks in The Athletic about that.
Yeah. I mean, I just,
I've been against it. I've been against that. I'm glad you brought that up. I couldn't, but that'd be like me telling the NFL this week they can't run dime defenses, right?
Right, exactly.
Like, think about that. Like, think if you told Larry Drew or whoever's coaching the Cavs, you can't run a zone against Sacramento tonight. They would look at you and be like, "What?" I think the baseball is they're in the like. I want to say this right. Everybody complains about baseball because baseball's baseball, right? It's too slow, not enough action, this, and this. Look, in the NFL, if you continue to run out two linebackers and run out extra DBs, what's the offense going to do to you?
Beat you up.
They're going to run the ball. They're going to go, okay, we're going to go we're going to go 3-by-1, put a running back in the back, and we're going to run that safety over until you realize you better put a linebacker out there. In basketball, if you continue to run zones and different zones in the wrong zones, we're going to run zone busters. We're going to get our three-point shooters out there, and we're going to bust your ass until you get back in man. Baseball is the only sport where the defense dictates and the pitcher can dictate where they want you to go to the ball. And look, until the way for it to be fixed is MLB. Pay guys to go the other way. Pay Michael Brantley more money than you pay, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but pay a guy like Michael Brantley who hits the ball all over the field, pay him like you pay Mike Trout. The players are doing right now what is getting them paid. MLB doesn't care about strikeouts. They want home runs, and every guy's trying to hit a home run. Therefore, you have a game that's become what it is. MLB can try its best not to do shifts, but if players don't hit the ball the other way, what does it matter? You're still going to take away a couple hits, but I don't see it happening, Zach. I think it's one of those fun things to talk about is everybody's flying to Vegas this weekend for the weekend meetings. I just know from being around baseball people, like there's a big difference between what people that are actually in the game say and guys that just watch the game say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like the players and coaches that I know, they like. I sent that article, and I won't say to who, and it wasn't the Terry Francona, but it was somebody that coaches in the big leagues, and he laughed his ass off. He was like, he goes, I would love for them to come in and tell us where to play our players. I don't see it happening. Cool story, but we'll see. I look, baseball wants to change itself. You're all right. You're the perfect example. You like baseball, you don't love baseball.
Right.
If they don't play shifts, is that gonna change what you're doing on the boat in the middle of July?
No, because I listen rather than watch anyway. You know, I like I said,
isn't that 100%? Isn't that most fans? Most fans aren't gonna go, oh my God, the shift's over. Let's go down to the ballpark.
No, well, I'm more interested in this. Yeah, no, I thought it was a great article, and it's an interesting discussion. I just don't see it as possible because, you know, in basketball, you can move up and back the 3-point line. You can change the hand checking rules. You can adjust the shot clock. Right? In football, you can change the kickoff rules. You can change the rules on touching the quarterback. Like you said, you can't bar the Steelers from putting Juju and Antonio Brown on the same side of the formation. That's changing the fundamental purpose of the game, right? You can't say you can't blitz the quarterback. Like, even though some people feel like it's getting to that, that's a change. I guess what I'm more interested in, and probably most people, and I know this, you don't know the answer to this, but do you think they're going to these meetings in Vegas now that Carrasco has signed an extension with the intention of trading one of their other starting pitchers?
Yeah. I think that's just part of the deal. I think it's a great move. This is just my opinion. I think, and I've talked to people within the organization. What they did, this is my opinion. Don't anybody go run with it, but I think the Carlos Carrasco move is more or less, or is the Cleveland Indians saying, stop running for the fences, stop hearing certain statements and thinking we're quitting or giving up. We all live under a budget, right? Some of us have a better budget than others because of how much money we make or how frugal we are at other things. You can say whatever you want about the Cleveland Indians. They're only going to spend so much money. They spent more than they've ever spent before last year, and that got them where they got them. They want to be better next year, and they want to be better in 2020. All I've been told by the people that run the organization or the people that are making the choices is that they're not throwing up the white flag, but they know that they got to do something to become better. And to become better, they're going to have to move one of those guys. So I expect them to do it. Look, this is the beauty of what they've done. At least they can look at themselves in the mirror and say, all right, we're the best team in the AL. So, and I would say to the fan that bitches, and God bless you because you have that right. But if you're an Indians fan, I hope you just didn't wake up today and realize they can't spend as much money as the Yankees, number one. Number two, would you be happier if they just kept it? And I'm not asking you. This is just a question I would ask to any fan that doesn't like what probably will happen over this weekend or over the next 5 days. Would you prefer them just to stand pat and hope that they can get better just on with the guys that they already have?
Well, let me answer that. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me answer that. As someone who follows the team but certainly doesn't watch every game, right? You just said it. As someone who understands they have budget constraints but doesn't know the contract situation but for about 3 players, one of them being Carrasco after reading the details, right? I would say this. Right. I would say that the window's been open, that the last 2 years you haven't been able to get back to where you want to get, and you're in the window where it is championship or bust. I would say, without knowing what the budget constraints are, I would say it is time for a shakeup because what you had the last 2 years wasn't good enough, right? And I think especially this year, you saw that you did not have enough bullpen arms or bats to get it done, right?
I think you have bats. You didn't have arms. Yeah, no, right. And I think to me, that's what it's about. So look, the beautiful thing is that the Indians, look, they got a hardcore fan base. They may not have 3 million coming to the ballpark like some places. They may not sell it out like they did in the 90s. There is a hardcore group of Indians fans. Thank you for watching on television the way you watch. We're one of the most watched baseball teams in all of baseball, which says a lot about this town. But that doesn't – it's great that they watch on television. It's great that they listen on the radio. But if you don't sell – and look, society is what it is. Just like the Indians have their own constraints financially and have their own budget, most of Northeast Ohio has their own budget, right? I'm not going to sit here and say go to the games more if you want to keep a player. I'm not saying that. But because we all are under certain constraints financially, this is what they have to do. And like you said, they weren't good enough. You saw it. Zach Jackson saw it. Terry Francona saw it. And the guy living in Strongsville saw it. They weren't good enough to win the World Series last year. They need a shakeup. They need some new blood. They need some young new arms in the bullpen. And look, I still think the theories that they've built this ball club on for a mid-market size is still what every other mid-market is trying to do. You know what I mean? Like in Pittsburgh and Milwaukee, all those, like Milwaukee had a great season this year. You know where a lot of their backbone of the thought process of what they did came from? The Indians. Now they were able to take advantage. Look, they get 50,000 people to go to a game every night. So that changes things a little bit financially. I think that, I think mid-July, the Indians are going to be where they were last July. The question is, will they have some youth, and will they have a couple arms that can actually go into Houston or go into Boston in October and win?
Well,
and that's the hard thing for them, right? You can't judge them until the season's over.
Right. And they should win the division again, right? Barring something totally crazy.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So
and look.
Well, no. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say, and I know people ask why. Look, you need people like Carrasco to be successful in this, right? Like you need a guy like that kid. He could have held out for all hope and tried to make the last dime, and God bless him if he did, because you only get one chance to make this money. We always kill athletes for going for the last dime. I give him credit. It's not the Cookie understands and respects the Indians organization. He appreciates that they gave him a chance, and when they gave him his first long-term contract right after he had heart surgery. For the Indians to work, you need guys like Carrasco. Now, hopefully he can stay healthy for 3-4 years and be a mainstay in the rotation and help lead the Clevingers and Beavers to his status. And if that happens, look, that means they're going to be in good standing, right? If Cookie stays how Cookie's been the last 3-4 years and does it for 3 more years, you got one of the best pitchers in baseball still. And I think, and like anything else, like remember when we used to trade baseball cards? If you had 4 Jose Canseco rookies and you wanted to get a Carney Lansford and get the whole Oakland A's lineup, sometimes you got to trade 2 of those off to get the rest of the guys to make their lineup
I used
right.
to rip off my neighbors in baseball card trades all the time. Like my mom would have to step in.
Wasn't that the best? Yeah, my dad would be like, "Why are you guys out back fighting?" I'm like, trying to get the Carney Lansford this Dave Henderson off this asshole.
I have this vivid. We need to have him on so I can talk about it. But I have this vivid memory of I had this Eric Metcalf rookie card that was signed, and it was a pro set. Does that sound right? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't, but I can picture what it was, and it was his rookie card. So he was in his Texas number 2 jersey. So to me, being a Texas fan and a Browns fan, like this was my dude, right? I wouldn't have known him at the time from anyone, but I mean, I watched him. And so I had this autograph card, and then it ended up amongst my 3 or 4 friends who we traded with. It ended up like 6 different times getting traded back, but I know I ended up with it in somewhere in my parents' house. That card is. So
I totally know the feeling.
And that was what 1988. So 30 years ago.
Right.
Speaking of, well, no, I'm going to save that for the end. Speaking of, don't let me sign off without going back to an Eric Metcalf related thought. But I want to tie what you just.
Let me ask you this. Okay.
No,
let me ask. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to tie what you just said about the Indians, and I think you said it well. I think if people are frustrated with the Indians, Dre, it's not in how they've gone about it. It's just that they didn't win, right? That they just haven't finished the seasons the way. I mean, I get that. They're there. So that being said, I want to tie that to the beginning of this conversation about where you are in sports and knowing your realities. So while the Indians have to try to keep this window open for a long time, and they're either going to win one or they're not, right? Yes, there are different ways about going business, but to most fans, to most of the outside world, they're either going to win one or they're not, and that's because they're good enough to be on the doorstep of winning one.
Right.
Whereas you go back now to Akron football, they would have to put together 2 or 3 8-4 seasons to even sell 500 more season tickets, right?
Jesus,
For whoever this next coach is going to be, if he takes the money and runs, then after he does that, that's great. But then maybe he's changed the outlook. He's brought in the next Charlie Fry, right? The next Jason Taylor. Mm-hmm. He has set the tone. So now AJ Knott in Medina, Ohio, cares about the Zips game and sits with Uncle Rob and Uncle Zach and listens to Steve French when they play at Ball State at 6:00 on Tuesday, right? Because he cares, because he envisions himself playing for the Akron Zips, right? So that's the whole thing. And then when you crash back to 5 and 7, like nobody gives a shit because nobody ever really did before. And to those of you guys that have supported the program, I know that there's a loyal base. The Akron basketball team, guys, for years and years has spent a high major program because people support it, because people go to the games, and despite that rotting ass arena, and despite you can't get a good seat unless you give thousands of dollars to the university, like people have supported it and they care about Zips basketball. And there are a group of people that care about Zips football, and I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying I know that people only go to the stadium for the Hope and St. V game. Don't try to argue with me about that. I have eyes. They work.
Sorry, Rob. Sorry, Rob. Zach really likes you, but he's telling the truth.
So anyway, that's where that is, and there are different levels to success, and I think that's going to be one of the interesting things. The Browns would love to win the Super Bowl, and that's John Dorsey's ultimate goal. But next year, guys, like a year from now on John Dorsey's second anniversary, they should be contending for the playoffs, and whether they make it or not, and what the circumstances are that leads them to 8-4 at this time next year, or 5-7 at this time next year, we'll judge that. But that will be progress ultimately there, and there are small victories along the way. If you're Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh and Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh, there are hurdles along the way. There are obstacles, and it's always about the journey. But you're either raising that trophy in February or you're not. You've failed if you haven't. Right? The New Orleans Saints are either raising that trophy or not. The Los Angeles Rams window is open. Trophy or not. Patrick Mahomes, my God, he might break every record, right? Ultimately,
he really might.
Yeah, he might. He might break every record, and that's a whole, what's a whole other podcast and a whole other discussion too. Is yes, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy have built this offense. But some of it is just he fucking can make every throw, and Travis Kelce is a 230-pound wide receiver, and Tyreek Hill is the fastest guy in the league. So how much of it, Dre, is scheme and innovation, and how much of it is, oh my God, if you have a quarterback that can actually make this throw, there are pages to any playbook that have never been opened. Period.
Awesome question. Awesome question, because I'm glad you just said that, because that plays in our coach conversation. You can have the most innovative coach of all time. And once again, we'll go to an A to Z rule. That's one of the best A to Z rules in life, even for you guys going out this Friday night and this weekend with the snow. X's and O's are nice, but it's the Jimmys and Joes.
The Jimmys and Joes that are better. Yes.
Because think about this. You just said something, and I hate to bring it up, fantasy football, but I lost in my other league because I was going against Mahomes. And I shouldn't say this.
Tell me about your fantasy team.
Right. I want to punch Kareem Hunt in the face, not only for being an idiot and kicking a girl, but look at did you see what Mahomes, and it was against the Raiders. But Mahomes went out and ran for 50 yards last week because they didn't have a running game.
Yep.
So what you're talking about is so great. Yeah, Andy Reid, you call these great plays, but all right, you lose your number one running back. This guy goes out and throws for 300, throws for 4 touchdowns, and then runs for 50 yards. Like that. Andy Reid didn't know he was going to get 50 yards rushing from Mahomes last week. That is. So you have to marry. What I'm saying is, you do have to marry having the right coach, but to be super duper unbelievable, you got to have the talent match the coaching scheme. Like look at Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Did they have the success without each other? We'll never have that answer, but we don't need it. Mike Tomlin can hate Ben Roethlisberger, and Ben Roethlisberger can hate every coach and every receiver he's ever had. But the marriage that they've had has worked for both of them. Is going to put them in Canton at the end of when the day is done and over with.
Hey, and again, tie the whole conversation. You're going to win games at the University of Akron, at Otterbein University, at Westlake High School, at Coventry High School. You might have to be some sort of genius. You're going to win games in the NFL. You got to get good players, and you got to just motivate them. You just got to listen to them. You just got to let them fucking eat, right? Like that is so much of it. So much. Every job is different, and that's why every guy is not for every job. That's why really good coaches sometimes aren't head coaches, Dre. And that's why sometimes a head coach, even though he's coveted or even though he sees himself in a different place. I don't know Lincoln Riley from anything. I have a hard time believing that even for $9 million that he wants to leave a job in Norman, Oklahoma, where he makes half that, where he can, be home to his daughters at night, and where he can just bring in talent from all over the country to play there.
Yes.
Yes.
You know how I feel. You know how I feel, man.
Yeah.
If I get a choice between the man on the campus or going to the NFL, I'm staying on the campus. But I'll say this, and this is my own way of it. I like Eric Bieniemy a lot. Now, a part of that is because I remember him as a player and his undersized running back that was really good. And I think he's been around the NFL, and he had the job at Colorado as an OC. On the surface, I know as much about him as I know about Mike McCarthy. If those two were equals, let's say, and I'm just using this as an example, because KC's special teams coach, and if you listen to our podcast, we think special teams coaches are made to be head coaches, but that's not the conversation. If Eric Bieniemy, and I don't have this answer, I'm asking you. If Eric Bieniemy, let's say they both do their interviews. If Eric Bieniemy and Mike McCarthy and Lincoln Riley all are equal, what makes you pick one or the other? This is just a question I'm asking, because obviously to me, the McCarthy being a head coach already and winning a Super Bowl, if they're equal, will play pretty strong. And no one has said this, but let me say this. I got nothing against Baker Mayfield. I think that's a strange marriage to put together on a second-year quarterback, giving him his college coach. I'm just going to put that out.
Oh, no, Dre, I think that's absolutely a factor. Now, Butch Davis having all his Miami guys worked against him because they were accused of being spies and kiss-ups and all that shit in the locker room.
Right.
But they weren't the quarterback, right? So that's a totally different dynamic. That's an interesting question. I think it might be answered like this. Like, which one of those guys could win you one game you weren't supposed to win strictly by game management or strictly by personnel management? Because that's the thing. Dorsey's got to build the roster that ultimately is good enough to win 10, 11, or 12 and get in, and then you're hot. Are you hot? Are you healthy? Are you playing well? Right? He's got to build the roster. The coach has to, yes, maximize that roster, but mostly manage it. And if you can steal one on coaching – along the way, and that helps you get a home game, or that helps you get in, and then you get hot. Like, that's what it's all about, right? Like, Mike Tomlin was a way outside the box hire. Well, the guys respect him. They have veteran guys that run that locker room. They have Kevin Colbert who picks the players. Mm-hmm. There's just a really good checks and balances system. There's a reason that over the course of his career, the Steelers have rarely lost 2 in a row, because they flop sometimes, and Tomlin's done some dumb shit, But they bounce back the next week when they need a win. They almost always get it, right? Like,
his guys, for whatever reason, play hard for him, right?
Absolutely. And even though it's changed, even though the names have changed on who the older guys in that locker room are and what their level of leadership is, you don't worry about the Steelers past October 1st having the right leadership, right? You just don't. They endure, they deal with the drama, and they get to business, and we'll see. So, speaking of Eric Metcalf, I need to give this shout out. So Eric lives in Seattle now. And again, I don't know him. I met him. Our paths crossed one time a long time ago when I was with the Browns. And it was a really cool thing to, that's the childhood guy. I traded his card. I rooted for him at Texas. I followed his entire career, all of this stuff. So I have a good friend named Kurt who lives in Seattle, and he listens. And he was telling me how he, a year or so ago, wandered down to the Browns backers bar on a Sunday. He said he was just by himself, wasn't sure he was going to stay the whole game, but just kind of was missing home and wanted to have a beer and check out the Browns. And so he said he recognized a couple people and everybody was super friendly, and he saw this guy standing over in the corner kind of also keeping to himself, and he just kept saying, I know this guy. Like, did we go to school together? Like, did I used to live by him in Lakewood before I moved out here?
Kurt,
like, who is this guy?
By you. He ain't go to school with no black people.
Jesus. So eventually, he tells me it was Eric Metcalf, and that they talked, and that Eric couldn't have been nicer, and that he just nonchalantly, mostly anonymously, drops in the Browns backers bar sometimes in Seattle and watches the game on Sunday with the other people. So tomorrow is Kurt's 40th birthday. We honestly go back to being 8 years old. I can tell you about the free throw he missed in Manchester youth basketball that cost us a big win, but I can also tell you about all the games we played, all the hours. We're the kind of friends that we've done weddings together and funerals together and everything there is. And so he listens, and I appreciate that. He's survived. not only 30 years of knowing me, but several nights out with Ian Dunn, things like that. He was in Houston last week celebrating his birthday and going to the Browns game. And, of course, his high-maintenance friends made it. They were down 10-0 by the time they came in the stadium, but that sums up his 40 years of being a Browns fan. His late father was one of the greatest Browns fans, most loyal that there ever was. And so I just wanted to send a genuine A to Z birthday shout-out out to Seattle to my friend Kurt. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate all you guys listening. And, I'm about out of things to say. So you got any closing thoughts?
A couple of them. The report on LeBron wasn't Carmelo made me laugh. It was like, oh, really? No shit. Stop sending me pictures of Whoopi Goldberg saying it's Kelvin Benjamin.
Oh, that could be the greatest thing I've seen on Twitter. Oh, my goodness.
So funny. So funny. You guys, something's wrong with you. Shout out to Derrick Henry for running like he was running against Vanderbilt last night. That 99-yard run. It was fabulous. And Luis Valbuena passed away in a car accident the other night, former Cleveland Indian. Just shout out to his family, and hopefully it seems like we're getting this every single year, and I don't want to end the podcast on a downer, but you just hope in these other countries, these players, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the situation. I know I get sick to the stomach.
Just awful. I saw that this morning.
Yeah, I just feel like, Zach, every year now we're seeing players when they go home or they go back to other countries, they're getting these car accidents and dying, and that's unfortunate. And you just hold your breath and you hope that some way or another it changes. I'm not against players going home. I get it. If I played in a foreign land, 6, 7, 8 months of the country, I'd want to go home to my home country as well. But it's tough to continue seeing these type of stories every single year when baseball is a big part of your life, and baseball is a big part of my life. So that sucks. Former Indian, always a good dude, always smiling. Every time he saw us, whether he was in Houston or with the Angels, always had fond memories of being in Cleveland. So just shout out to him and his family. That sucks to go through that. Should be a fun weekend of football. There was something else I wanted to bring up to you. Oh, I'm going to a game as a fan tonight, Cavs game tonight, as a fan. And I went to that concert earlier this week, and you guys already know this. I am washed. That concert was not for me, and I'm going to this game tonight, and I'm already thinking about going to bed. Like, I'm already tired. Like, I'm already like, as soon as the game's over, I'm getting in my car, avoiding traffic. I can't wait to lay down.
Well, I've been going to some basketball games lately, so I feel like I'm much more caught up on new hip-hop than I was 3 weeks ago. But I really don't know. Like, sometimes I bullshit about this, but I really don't know who Travis Scott is. I really don't.
You don't have to. Let me say one thing about his concert, because I heard everybody, and this just shows my age. I'm admitting it, and I can't believe I am. He had one of those shows where he probably spent, and this is where I think, this is how I know I'm old, because I never thought this way when I was younger. His concert would have been 10 times better if he would have cut like 8 songs out and got rid of all the bullshit and saved all the money that he has on his stage. He's got one of those stages. It's got a roller coaster, and it's got fire and all this other crap. And all I'm thinking halfway through the concert is, man, in 20 years when when nobody truly knows who his ass is, he's going to be pissed off that he's wasting $500,000 a night during his concert. Because that's what I'm like, dude, you're wasting $300,000 to $500,000 a night, where half these people don't care what your set looks like.
Right.
Just play the 6 songs that we know and
listen,
get the fuck out of it.
Half the people are there just so they can put pictures of themselves on Instagram there. That's the world we live in, right? Like,
yeah, you're right. No doubt, you're right.
And God bless you for it. I'm not complaining.
Right. Keep showing us. This is the first thing I'm going to tell my kids when they get a cell phone. Don't show everybody exactly where you're at. Everybody don't got good intentions.
Yeah.
Right?
So when I was in Oakland in late September, the Rotting Ass Coliseum and the Rotting Ass Warriors Arena are right next. They might even be connected by an underground tunnel. Don't quote me on that, but they are. Literally right next to each other. And the arena, it wasn't basketball season. The arena was completely dressed up in Travis Scott banners. And so at the time I was like, well, I've heard the name. I'm sure I've heard at least one of the songs. I don't know, but I had no idea he was that big of a deal. And then, I don't know. At this time of year, I don't know what day of the week it is. So when the other day, you're like, me and Peter going to see Travis Scott tonight, I was like, where? And then I was like, oh, it's probably at the Q.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, that's just how it is.
Well, He's got the number one song in the world. He's got a baby by a Kardashian or Jenner or whatever you want to say. He wins the popularity contest, and God bless him. Hope he saves his money up.
He's going to need it. Right.
Save your money, son. Save your money because it's not going to last.
All right. Konnichiwa, Travis Scott. Hey, guys. Cleveland Scene, Honeymoon Grill, American Fireworks, A to Z Podcast.com, Facebook.com/A to Z Podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tweeting. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for reading The Athletic. All that stuff. See you next time, next week on A to Z.
Konnichiwa, Terry Bowden.